Hey guys, tonight we journey to the frozen, wind-lashed coasts of ancient Scandinavia, into a world of long ships, long nights, and long beards frozen solid. We're diving headfirst into the brutal reality of a Viking winter. Forget the heroic sagas and horned helmets, which they didn't wear, by the way. The truth is, you'd be begging for spring, for the sun, for a single lukewarm potato before the first blizzard even hit. You probably wouldn't last a single month, let alone the whole season. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft, chilling background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey, together. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the middle of a Viking winter, or maybe you haven't. It's impossible to tell, because outside the hide-covered opening of your longhouse, the world is a single, unbroken canvas of black. The sun, your old friend from that distant mythical season called summer, has officially clocked out. It glanced at the horizon a few weeks ago, shrugged, and decided to take a 4-month vacation, leaving you in a perpetual state of twilight and existential dread. There is no morning, only a slightly less dark version of night. Your alarm clock is the sound of the wind screaming like a banshee with a grudge, rattling the timber walls of the longhouse, and promising to tear the turf roof right off. You're not waking up refreshed. You're waking up because the cold has seeped through your wool blanket, your furs, and your very bones, reminding you that sleep is a luxury and survival is a full-time job. You're lying on a raised wooden platform, sharing a space the size of a modern living room with 20 other people. Their snores, their smells, and their collective body heat, which is the only form of central heating you're going to get. Your mattress is a sack of straw, home to a thriving community of fleas who are far more energetic than you are. You try to stretch, but your joints crack like frozen twigs. The air you breathe is thick with the scent of wood smoke, unwashed bodies, stale ale, and the faint, ever-present aroma of goat. Yes, the livestock are in here with you, huddled at the other end of the longhouse, because leaving them outside would be a free-for-all buffet for the local wolf pack. So you lie there, in the oppressive, endless dark, listening to the symphony of snores, coughs, and the occasional bleat of a very cold sheep. You have no idea if it's 4 a.m. or noon. Time has become a meaningless concept, a fluid, murky river of darkness. Your only task for the day is to not die, and that mission begins with the heroic effort of swinging your legs off a flea-infested straw bed into air so cold it feels like a physical slap. Welcome to your first waking moment in a Viking winter, where the day doesn't dawn, it just gets marginally less hopeless. Your feet hit the floor, and it's not wood, it's packed earth, cold and unforgiving as a tax collector. The central fire pit at the heart of the longhouse is down to glowing embers, a dying orange eye in the smoky gloom. Your first job, before you've even had a chance to contemplate the futility of your existence, is to help rekindle it. This isn't a quaint, rustic chore. It's a matter of life and death. The fire is your only source of light, your only source of heat, and the only thing cooking your food besides your own simmering resentment. But firewood is a precious, finite resource. Every log was chopped, hauled, and stacked during the warmer months, a back-breaking investment in not freezing to death later. You can't just toss another log on casually. Every piece is rationed, calculated. You use just enough to keep the frost from forming on your eyebrows, but not enough to feel genuinely warm. The longhouse itself is an engineering marvel of misery. It's a long, narrow hall, maybe 60 feet in length, with timber walls and a high, arching roof made of turf laid over wooden planks. There are no windows, not a single pane of glass. The only openings are a door at each end, covered with a heavy animal hide, and a smoke hole in the ceiling directly above the fire pit. This brilliant design feature means that while some of the smoke escapes, most of it decides to hang around, filling the air with a permanent, eye-watering haze. You spend your entire winter breathing in a rich cocktail of carbon monoxide and particulate matter. Your lungs are slowly being cured, like a side of bacon. Privacy. That's a concept from a different civilization. You share this single, cavernous room with your entire extended family. Parents, siblings, cousins, grandparents, and maybe a few random farmhands who got snowed back in October and never left. Everyone's life is public. You hear every argument, every whisper, every bodily function. Your personal space is the length of your sleeping bag, and even that is negotiable. The smell is a character in itself. It's a complex, layered aroma. The base note is damp earth and wood smoke. Layered on top of that is the scent of drying fish, the musk of unwashed wool, the sharp tang of fermenting ale, and the undeniable earthy perfume of livestock. Your goat, your sheep, maybe even a calf, are your roommates. They provide warmth and a constant, low-level barnyard symphony. You'll find their droppings near your sleeping area. It's not a big deal. You just kick it into the fire pit. It's all part of the ecosystem. This longhouse isn't a home. It's a survival pod, a wooden submarine navigating a sea of ice and darkness. And you're all trapped in it together until the world decides to thaw. You've managed to avoid stepping on a sleeping dog or a pile of goat droppings. A minor victory. Now, nature calls, and it's not calling from a heated bathroom with a flush toilet and scented candles. In the Viking Age, your toilet is the great, frozen outdoors. Or, if you're feeling particularly civilized, a small, drafty outhouse a few dozen feet from the longhouse. Either way, it's an adventure in hypothermia. You pull on your wool tunic, your leather shoes, and a heavy fur cloak, and step out of the relative warmth of the longhouse into a wall of cold that steals your breath. The wind is a physical force, a relentless bully that shoves and bites. The snow is knee-deep, and the path to the outhouse is a treacherous, icy track you have to navigate in the near-total darkness. The outhouse itself is a masterpiece of minimalist suffering. It's a small wooden shack with a hole in a plank. There's no door, just an opening. There is no insulation. There is no toilet paper. Your options for wiping are a handful of snow, a bundle of moss you hopefully gathered before the first frost, or just a resigned shrug. You do your business as quickly as possible, your bare skin exposed to temperatures that can cause frostbite in minutes. The experience is so shockingly cold it's almost spiritual. You sit there, shivering, listening to the wind howl, and contemplating every life choice that led you to this moment. There's a certain camaraderie in this misery. You might see your neighbor making the same grim pilgrimage, and you'll exchange a nod of mutual understanding. No words are needed. The shared trauma of the winter toilet is a bond stronger than blood. And forget hand washing. The water barrel is frozen solid. You might rub your hands with snow, but that just makes them colder. You return to the longhouse, your body numb, your dignity somewhere out in the blizzard, and a newfound appreciation for the smoky, goat-scented air inside. It's a humbling daily ritual that reminds you of your place in the world. A small, warm-blooded creature at the mercy of an indifferent, frozen landscape. You haven't brushed your teeth. You haven't had a sip of water. And you've already risked losing a toe to the cold. And the day has barely begun. This isn't just a challenge. It's a constant, low-grade state of warfare against the elements. And your bladder is the first battleground. Now that you've braved the Arctic tundra of your backyard latrine, it's time for the first meal of the day. Breakfast. Or, as the Vikings called it, whatever's left. Don't imagine a hearty spread of sizzling bacon, eggs, and warm bread. That's a fantasy for a chieftain's wedding feast, not a bleak midwinter morning. You gather around the central fire pit, the smoke stinging your eyes, and receive your portion of what can only be described as edible gloom. Your breakfast, and likely your lunch and dinner, is a bowl of porridge. It's a thick, lumpy gruel made from barley or oats, boiled with water or, if you're lucky, a bit of milk. It's not seasoned with sugar or cinnamon. It's seasoned with whatever fell into the pot. A bit of ash from the fire, extra minerals, a stray goat hair, extra protein. It's bland, it's monotonous, and its primary function is to fill your stomach with something that isn't just cold air. On the side, you might get a piece of flatbread, hard and dense, perfect for soaking up the porridge or for use as a defensive weapon, and to wash it all down, not water. The water barrel outside is a block of ice, and even if it weren't, drinking unboiled water is a gamble. Instead, you drink ale. Yes, ale for breakfast. It's a weak, low-alcohol brew, thick and nutritious, more like liquid bread than a modern beer. Kids drink it. Adults drink it. Everyone drinks it. It provides calories and hydration without the risk of dysentery. Fresh fruit, a distant memory from a sunnier time. Vegetables, maybe a few withered root vegetables that were stored in the cellar, like turnips or carrots, probably tossed into the porridge to add some vague, earthy flavour. The real treasure of the winter pantry is meat and fish, but it's not fresh, it's preserved. You'll be chewing on strips of dried salted cod that are tough as leather, or gnawing on smoked meat that tastes more like the fire than the animal. It's a high-protein, high-salt diet that keeps you alive, but also permanently thirsty. You eat quickly, huddled close to the fire, because the moment you step away, your porridge turns into a cold, gelatinous mass. This meal isn't about pleasure, it's about fuel. It's the caloric equivalent of tossing another log on the fire of your metabolism, just enough to keep it from going out for a few more hours. Bon appétit, or rather, skål. Now go face the darkness. You've consumed your daily allowance of oat-flavoured cement. Now it's time to get dressed for a day of more darkness. Your wardrobe is not about fashion. It's about a desperate, layered defense against a world that wants to freeze you solid. Forget cotton and silk. Your entire existence is wrapped in wool and leather. You start with a base layer, a long linen or wool undertunic. It's scratchy. It's probably been worn for a week straight. And it has the faint, lingering scent of old sweat and wood smoke. This is your second skin. Over that goes another, heavier wool tunic. Wool is a miracle fabric in this climate. It insulates even when it's damp, which is good because you are perpetually damp. On your legs, you pull on a pair of simple wool trousers, cinched at the waist with a leather belt. They're not tailored for a slim fit. They're built for movement and for tucking into your boots. And your boots, or rather your shoes, are your most important possession. They are simple, ankle-high leather turn shoes, stitched together by hand. To keep your feet from freezing, you stuff them with dried grass or scraps of wool for insulation. They are not waterproof. One step into a patch of slush, and your feet will be wet and cold for the rest of the day. A one-way ticket to frostbite. The final layer is your cloak. A heavy, thick rectangle of wool or fur, clasped at the shoulder with a pin made of bone or bronze. This is your shield against the wind, your portable blanket, and your personal tent in a blizzard. You pull it tight around your shoulders, flip up the hood, and you're almost ready. Don't forget your accessories. A leather belt from which hangs a knife. Never leave home without a knife. And maybe a small pouch for a whetstone or a piece of flint. If you're a woman, your attire is similar. A long linen underdress, a woolen overdress often open at the sides and held up by two brooches on the shoulders, and the same heavy cloak. There's no such thing as light outerwear. Everything is heavy, everything is practical, and everything smells faintly of lanolin, the natural oil in sheep's wool, which offers a tiny bit of water resistance and a whole lot of sheepy aroma. You are now wearing approximately 15 pounds of damp animal fibers. You feel less like a person and more like a walking, talking pile of laundry. But it's what stands between you and the gnawing, relentless cold. Now that you're properly bundled, you can step outside and begin your day of chores, where you will inevitably get wet, cold, and wonder why you didn't just stay in bed. Winter in the Viking Age is not a time for hibernation. It's a season of relentless, vital chores. The work you do now isn't for profit or glory. It's to ensure that everyone in the longhouse sees the spring. Your day is a cycle of tasks dictated by necessity, not by the clock. First, the animals. The goats, sheep, and cattle that are sharing your living space need to be fed and watered. This means hauling hay from the barn, a task that requires you to venture out into the biting wind. It also means breaking the ice on the water trough with an axe, a frustrating, finger-numbing job that has to be done multiple times a day. You check on the livestock, looking for signs of sickness or injury. A dead cow in the middle of winter isn't just a loss, it's a catastrophe. That's a loss of milk, a loss of meat, and a loss of the calf it might have borne in the spring. Then there's the wood. The fire in the longhouse is a hungry beast, and it must be fed constantly. You spend a portion of your day either chopping logs from the precious woodpile, or, if the weather is clear enough, venturing into the nearby forest to gather fallen branches. This is dangerous work. A sudden blizzard can leave you stranded and disoriented just 100 yards from home. The forest is also home to wolves and other predators who are just as hungry as you are. Inside the longhouse, the work continues. Tools need to be repaired. A broken axe handle, a dull knife, a torn fishing net, all must be mended. There are no stores to buy replacements. You are the manufacturer, the repairman, and the quality control inspector. You sit by the dim light of the fire, carving a new handle from a piece of ash, sharpening a blade on a whetstone, or reweaving a net with calloused, careful fingers. Women are occupied with their own set of endless tasks. They are responsible for turning raw wool into clothing, a long, laborious process of carding, spinning yarn on a drop spindle, and weaving it into cloth on a vertical loom. They are also in charge of food preparation, a constant cycle of grinding grain, soaking dried fish, and simmering the perpetual porridge. They make butter and cheese from the milk of the longhouse cow, and use herbs to treat the sick. There are no days off. There is no weekend. There is only the work that needs to be done, day after day, in the cold and the dark. Your reward for this unending labour? You get to eat another bowl of lumpy porridge and wake up tomorrow to do it all over again. Survival is not a passive state. It is an act of constant, exhausting effort. In the centre of your smoky, crowded longhouse, there is a single source of life: the fire. The long hearth, a shallow pit running down the middle of the floor, is more than just a place to cook. It is the heart of your winter world. Everything revolves around it. It is your only light in the months of darkness, casting long, dancing shadows on the timber walls and illuminating the faces of your family like a living painting. It is your only defense against the brutal, penetrating cold that lies just beyond the walls. To sit near the fire is to be alive. To be cast out into the cold is a death sentence. The fire is also your kitchen. A large cauldron hangs from a chain over the flames, constantly simmering with the day's porridge or stew. Fish are hung from the rafters above to be smoked, and strips of meat are dried on racks nearby. The fire transforms raw, unpalatable ingredients into something that can sustain you. It is a tool of alchemy, turning hardship into sustenance. But the fire is a demanding god. It requires constant tribute in the form of firewood. The woodpile, so carefully stacked in the autumn, shrinks with each passing day. You watch it with a growing sense of anxiety. Will it last until the thaw? Running out of wood is one of a Viking's greatest fears. It means a slow, cold death. So, every log is precious, every ember cherished. At night, the fire is banked, covered with ash to keep the coals alive until morning. The first person to wake has the sacred duty of reviving it, gently blowing on the embers until they glow, feeding them with tinder until a small flame catches and grows. The fire is also the social centre of the longhouse. In the long, dark evenings, everyone gathers around it. It is here that stories are told, the great sagas of gods and heroes recited from memory. It is here that news is shared, songs are sung, and disputes are settled. The fire is a witness to births, deaths, and all the small human dramas that unfold in the claustrophobic intimacy of the longhouse. It provides a focal point, a shared space that reinforces the bonds of family and community. But the fire is also a danger. A stray spark could ignite the dry straw on the floor or the timber walls. The constant smoke, trapped by the turf roof, irritates your eyes and lungs, leading to chronic coughs and respiratory problems. It is a constant, low-level poison that you willingly breathe in exchange for warmth and light. You live your life in a delicate balance with this elemental force, respecting its power, fearing its hunger, and depending on it for your very survival. The fire is your captor and your saviour, the glowing heart of your frozen world. The autumn harvest was good, the hunt was successful, and the fishing was plentiful. You entered the winter with a larder full of salted fish, smoked meat, dried fruits, and barrels of grain. But winter is long, and your stomach is a bottomless pit. By mid-January, a quiet, gnawing anxiety begins to creep into the longhouse. The food is running out. This is the reality of Viking winter, a slow, relentless battle against starvation. You begin to ration. The portions of porridge get a little smaller. The strips of dried meat are sliced a little thinner. Every meal is a careful calculation, a balancing act between immediate hunger and the terrifying prospect of an empty barrel in March. The children are always hungry. You see it in their eyes. You give them your portion of bread, telling yourself you're not that hungry anyway. It's a lie, but it's a necessary one. As the weeks grind on, the diet becomes more and more grim. The last of the smoked ham is gone. The salted cod is down to a few desiccated strips. Now, you turn to the food of last resort. You start boiling the bones from previous meals, simmering them for hours to extract every last bit of marrow and gelatin, creating a thin, greasy broth that provides a flicker of nourishment. You eat the leather scraps you would have normally used to patch your shoes, boiling them until they are soft enough to chew. You venture into the frozen forest to strip bark from pine trees, the inner layer of which can be ground into a coarse flour to stretch your meager grain supply. It tastes like sawdust and despair, but it fills your belly. Hunting becomes a desperate gamble. A single deer could feed the longhouse for a week, but the deer are scarce and wary. A hunting party might spend days tracking an animal through the deep snow, risking frostbite and starvation, only to return empty-handed. The wolves are also hunting, and you are competing with them for the same scarce prey. Sometimes the roles are reversed, and the hunter becomes the hunted. The psychological toll of this constant hunger is immense. It frays tempers, fuels arguments, and turns neighbors into rivals. Every mouthful of food is counted, every scrap jealously guarded. The community that huddled together for warmth in the early winter begins to crack under the strain of empty stomachs. This period, known as the hunger gap, is the most dangerous time of the year. It's a race against time, a desperate wait for the first signs of spring, for the ice to thaw, for the first green shoots to appear. Many don't make it. The old and the sick are the first to go, quietly fading away in the smoky darkness. To survive a Viking winter is to understand true hunger, a deep, primal fear that shapes your every thought and action. It's a hunger that gnaws not just at your stomach, but at your soul. The fire crackles, casting flickering shadows across the faces of your family. Outside, the wind howls, a mournful, unending song. The work for the day is done. The meager meal has been eaten. And now the long dark evening stretches before you, an ocean of time to be crossed. How do you keep from going mad in this smoky, crowded, unchanging world? You tell stories. In a world without books, television, or internet, storytelling is not just entertainment. It's a lifeline. It's how you preserve your history, teach your values, and keep the darkness at bay. The elders are the keepers of the sagas, the epic tales of legendary heroes like Ragnar Lothbrok or Sigurd, the Dragon Slayer. They recite them from memory, their voices rising and falling with the rhythm of the verse, a skill honed over a lifetime. You listen, enthralled, as they tell of great battles, treacherous kings, and voyages to distant, unknown lands. These stories are more than just adventures. They are a connection to your ancestors, a reminder that you are part of a long, proud lineage of warriors and survivors. The Skald, or poet, is a revered figure in Viking society. He is a master of language, able to weave complex kennings and alliteration into verses that praise the courage of his chieftain or lament the death of a hero. A good Skald is worth more than gold. He can grant a man immortality through his words. You also play games. The most popular is Nefatafl, a strategy board game similar to chess. 2 players, one with a king and a small band of defenders, the other with a larger force of attackers, battle for control of the board. The game requires skill, foresight, and a ruthless cunning. It's a miniature version of the raids and sieges that define the Viking world, a way to sharpen your mind for the battles to come. Music, too, fills the longhouse. Someone might pull out a talharpa, a simple stringed instrument, or a flute carved from bone, and play a haunting, melancholic melody. People sing songs of the sea, of lost loves, of the gods, and their endless feuds. These moments of shared creativity are a balm for the soul, a way to express the emotions that are otherwise suppressed in the harsh reality of daily life. This is how you survive the winter's psychological toll. You fill the darkness with words, with music, with the shared human experience of storytelling. You create a world of light and sound within the walls of the longhouse, a world that is richer, grander, and more hopeful than the frozen wasteland outside. The sagas remind you that even the longest nights eventually end, and that courage is the one flame that can never be extinguished. You think you understand cold. You've felt a winter chill. You've seen your breath fog in the air. That is nothing. The cold of a Viking winter is a different entity entirely. It's not just a temperature. It's a living, breathing predator that is constantly trying to kill you. The weather is your overlord, your jailer, and your executioner. When a blizzard hits, it's not a gentle snowfall. It's a whiteout, a swirling, blinding vortex of wind and ice that erases the world. The visibility drops to 0. You can't see the hand in front of your face, let alone the longhouse just a few yards away. To be caught outside in a blizzard is a death sentence. You become disoriented, lost in a world without landmarks, and you wander until you collapse from exhaustion and the cold takes you. The wind is a constant torment. It's a physical assault that batters the walls of the longhouse, searching for any crack or crevice to force its way in. It moans and shrieks and howls, a sound that gets into your bones and rattles your nerves. It's the voice of the Jötnar, the frost giants of Norse mythology, reminding you of their power. The ice is treacherous. The ground is frozen solid, as hard as iron. A slip and fall can mean a broken bone, an injury that is often fatal in a world without modern medicine. The rivers and fjords freeze over, creating a stark, beautiful, but deadly landscape. The ice might look thick, but it can hide thin spots and currents. To fall through the ice is to be swallowed by the black, freezing water, a quick, brutal end from which there is no escape. The very air you breathe is a weapon. Inhaling the sub-zero air can feel like swallowing needles. Your lungs burn and your nostrils freeze together. Every breath is a small, painful reminder of the hostility of your environment. You learn to read the weather with an instinct born of generations of survival. You watch the clouds. You feel the shift in the wind. You notice the way the snow crunches underfoot. Your life depends on these subtle cues. You know when it's safe to venture out and when you must retreat to the relative safety of the longhouse. But even inside, you are not safe from the cold. It seeps through the walls. It creeps in under the door. It falls from the smoke hole in the ceiling. You are never truly warm. You are only less cold. This is the reality of your existence. A constant, unwinnable war against the elements, where a single mistake, a moment of carelessness, can be your last. You are not alone in the vast, frozen wilderness. The winter that drives you into the smoky confines of your longhouse also drives the wild animals of the forest into a state of desperate hunger. And in the Viking Age, the line between hunter and hunted is terrifyingly thin. The most immediate and feared threat is the wolf. The great Scandinavian wolf packs, lean and hungry from the scarce prey, are emboldened by the winter. They are no longer shadows in the distant forest. They are at your doorstep. You hear their howls at night, a chilling, primordial chorus that seems to come from all directions at once. They are a constant threat to your livestock. A single wolf can take down a sheep or a goat, and a pack can decimate your entire flock, the animals you are depending on to survive the winter. Every trip to the barn is a tense, watchful affair. You carry a spear or an axe, your eyes scanning the darkness, your ears listening for the faint sound of padded feet on snow. But the wolves are not just a threat to your animals. A lone, unarmed person is a potential meal. Children are warned never to wander far from the longhouse. The stories of children taken by wolves are not just fairy tales. They are a grim reality. Then there are the bears. Though most are hibernating, a hungry bear that has been roused from its slumber is a force of nature, an unstoppable engine of destruction. It can tear through the wall of a barn or even a longhouse with terrifying ease. An encounter with a bear is almost always fatal. Even the smaller predators pose a threat. The wolverine, with its legendary ferocity, can be a danger to both livestock and humans. The lynx, a silent, ghostly hunter, can take down a deer and is more than capable of attacking a person if it feels threatened. You live in a state of constant, low-level siege. The wilderness is not a peaceful, scenic backdrop. It's an enemy territory, populated by creatures that see you as food. You learn to respect these animals, to understand their habits, to avoid their territories. You also learn to kill them. A successful wolf or bear hunt is not just a defensive measure, it's a bounty. The meat provides precious food, and the pelt provides a warm, valuable fur. But the hunt is always a risk. You are pitting your human cunning and your simple iron weapons against the raw, brutal power of nature. In the Viking winter, the door of your longhouse is more than just an entrance. It's a barrier, a thin wooden line between the fragile warmth of your world and the cold, hungry wilderness that waits outside. In the endless dark winter, your body, already weakened by cold and hunger, becomes a fragile vessel, susceptible to a host of ailments. In a world without antibiotics, antiseptics, or even a basic understanding of germ theory, a simple sickness can quickly become a death sentence. The cramped, smoky conditions of the longhouse are a perfect breeding ground for disease. With 20 or more people living in close quarters, coughs and colds spread like wildfire. A respiratory infection, what we would dismiss as a minor inconvenience, can easily develop into pneumonia, a fatal illness in this era. The lack of sanitation is another major threat. Without proper sewage disposal, and with water sources that are often contaminated, dysentery and other gastrointestinal diseases are common. An outbreak can sweep through a longhouse, leaving a trail of death and misery in its wake. The winter diet, devoid of fresh fruits and vegetables, leads to nutritional deficiencies. The most feared of these is scurvy, a gruesome disease caused by a lack of vitamin C. Its symptoms are horrific. Your gums swell and bleed, your teeth fall out, old wounds reopen, and you eventually die in agony. The Vikings were aware of this threat and would sometimes chew on pine needles, a natural source of vitamin C. But it was a constant, looming danger. Injuries are another major concern. A deep cut from an axe while chopping wood, a burn from the central fire, a broken bone from a fall on the ice, all can be fatal. Without proper medical care, a wound can easily become infected, leading to gangrene and a slow, painful death. The Vikings were skilled at setting bones and stitching wounds, but their methods were crude and often ineffective. Healing is a mixture of practical herbalism and desperate superstition. The local wise woman, or vulva, might have a store of dried herbs and remedies passed down through generations. A poultice of yarrow might be applied to a wound to stop bleeding, or a tea of willow bark. A natural source of aspirin might be given for a fever. But these remedies are often accompanied by chants, spells, and offerings to the gods. Sickness is seen not just as a physical ailment, but as a spiritual one, a sign that you have angered the gods or been cursed by an enemy. You pray to Air, the goddess of healing, but you also fear the touch of Hell, the ruler of the underworld. The line between life and death is razor thin, and in the deep of winter, it's a line that is crossed all too often. The physical hardships of a Viking winter, the cold, the hunger, the sickness, are immense. But there is another, more insidious threat that gnaws at you in the long, dark months: the psychological toll of your confinement. Welcome to the world of Viking cabin fever. You are trapped. For months on end, you are confined to the smoky, smelly, overcrowded space of the longhouse with the same group of people. The world outside is a hostile, frozen wasteland, and the longhouse is your only sanctuary. But that sanctuary can quickly become a prison. The lack of privacy is absolute. You have no space to call your own, no moment of solitude. Every conversation is overheard, every action observed. The constant proximity to others, the endless noise of coughing, snoring and crying children, the oppressive smell, it all grinds on your nerves. Tempers fray, small irritations fester and grow into bitter resentments. An argument over a stolen piece of bread or a misplaced tool can escalate into a full-blown feud. The social hierarchy of the longhouse, so clear in the summer, becomes a source of tension. The chieftain's authority is tested, and rivalries between families can simmer just beneath the surface. The darkness plays tricks on your mind. Without the natural rhythm of day and night, your sleep patterns are disrupted. The world becomes a monotonous, unchanging landscape of shadows and gloom. Depression, or what the Vikings might have called a darkness of the soul, is a constant companion. You miss the sun, the green of the fields, the open sea. The claustrophobia is suffocating. To combat this psychological decay, the Vikings relied on the strength of their social bonds. The shared rituals, the storytelling, the games, all were essential for maintaining sanity. A strict code of conduct and a respect for the law, enforced by the chieftain, were necessary to keep the peace. A person who disrupted the harmony of the longhouse was a threat to the survival of the entire group and would be dealt with harshly. But even with these coping mechanisms, the strain is immense. You have to learn to be patient, to be tolerant, to suppress your own frustrations for the good of the community. You have to find an inner resilience to match the harshness of the world outside. To survive the Viking winter, you must not only conquer the cold and the hunger, but also the darkness within yourself. It's a battle fought not with an axe and a shield, but with a quiet, stubborn determination to endure. In the deep, silent cold of a Viking winter, the world of the gods feels closer, more immediate, and far more dangerous. The endless night is not just a natural phenomenon. It's a sign that the forces of chaos are gaining strength. This is the time of the Jotnar, the frost giants, ancient enemies of the gods and of mankind. Your religious beliefs are not a matter of quiet, personal faith. They are a practical, desperate system for survival. You live in a world governed by a pantheon of powerful, unpredictable, and often terrifying deities. You don't just worship them, you bargain with them, appease them, and fear their wrath. Odin, the Allfather, is a god of wisdom, poetry, and war, but he is also a god of death and sacrifice. You pray to him for guidance, but you also know that he demands a high price. Thor, the mighty thunder god, is your protector, your shield against the giants. You call on him to keep the storms at bay, to guard your longhouse, but you know that his hammer can also bring destruction. Freya, the goddess of love and fertility, is the one you pray to for the survival of your livestock and for the coming of spring. But she is also a goddess of war, who claims half of the warriors who fall in battle. The most important religious event of the winter is Yule, a midwinter festival that takes place around the winter solstice. It's a time of feasting, drinking, and sacrifice. An animal, perhaps a boar or a goat, is slaughtered and offered to the gods. The blood is sprinkled on the walls of the longhouse and on the people, a ritual to ensure fertility and protection. The meat is cooked and shared in a great feast, a rare moment of abundance in the lean winter months. It's a defiant celebration of life in the face of the encroaching darkness. But there is also a deep undercurrent of fear. The Vikings believed in Ragnarok, the prophesied end of the world, a great battle between the gods and the giants that would result in the destruction of everything. The Thimble winter, a winter that lasts for 3 years, is the first sign of Ragnarok's approach. Every long, harsh winter carries with it the terrifying possibility that this might be the one, the beginning of the end. You also believe in a host of lesser spirits and creatures that inhabit the world around you. The Landvetter, the spirits of the land, must be respected. The elves and dwarves of Norse mythology are not the cute, friendly creatures of modern fantasy. They are powerful, mysterious beings who can be either helpful or hostile. You leave offerings for them, a bowl of milk or a piece of bread to keep them on your side. Your religion is not a source of comfort. It's a grim, necessary negotiation with the powerful, unseen forces that shape your world. You do what you must to survive, hoping that the gods are listening and that the sun will, eventually, return. The fjord is frozen solid. The mountain passes are buried under 10 feet of snow. The sea, a churning grey expanse of icy water, is too treacherous for even the most skilled Viking sailors. In the winter, you are utterly and completely isolated. The world shrinks to the size of your small, snowbound village. The trade routes that brought salt, spices, and news from distant lands are closed. The longships are pulled ashore, their dragon-headed prows covered in a shroud of snow. You are cut off from the rest of the world, a tiny island of humanity in a vast, silent wilderness. This isolation has profound consequences. There is no help coming. If your food stores run out, if a disease sweeps through your longhouse, if a rival village decides to attack, you are on your own. You must be entirely self-sufficient, relying on the resources you have gathered and the skills you possess. Every member of the community is vital. The blacksmith who can forge a new axe, the woman who can mend a torn cloak, the hunter who knows the secret trails of the deer, all are indispensable. The isolation also breeds a deep sense of paranoia. Who can you trust? The neighbouring village, just a few miles down the fjord, might be your allies in the summer, but in the depths of winter, when resources are scarce, they can quickly become your rivals, or even your enemies. A dispute over hunting grounds or a stolen sheep can escalate into a deadly feud. You watch the strangers who approach your village with suspicion. Are they lost travellers in need of shelter, or are they scouts for a raiding party? The psychological effects of this confinement are immense. The world becomes a small, claustrophobic stage, and the same faces, the same stories, the same arguments are repeated day after day. You long for news, for a new face, for a sign that the world beyond your valley still exists. The return of the first trading ship in the spring is a momentous occasion, a joyous celebration that marks the end of your long, dark imprisonment. But for now, you are trapped. You are a prisoner of the winter, and your only companions are your family, your gods, and the howling wind. You learn to find a strange comfort in this isolation, a sense of belonging to your small, tight-knit community. You are all in this together, a small band of survivors holding out against the darkness. This shared struggle forges bonds that are deeper and stronger than any forged in the easy abundance of summer. You may be cut off from the world, but you are not alone. You are a Viking, and you will endure. In the close-knit, isolated world of a Viking winter, where every person is a vital part of the survival machine, law and order are not abstract concepts. They are the invisible threads that keep your society from tearing itself apart. There are no police forces, no courts in the modern sense. Justice is a communal affair, administered by the local chieftain, or jarl, and guided by a complex, unwritten code of honour, tradition, and brutal pragmatism. The central institution of Viking law is the Thing, a local assembly where all free men gather to settle disputes, pass laws, and make important decisions. But in the dead of winter, when travel is impossible, the Thing is suspended. Justice becomes more immediate, more personal, and far more dangerous. The Jarl is the ultimate authority. He is the law. His word is final. He is expected to be wise, fair, and strong. He must be able to settle a dispute over stolen livestock with a judgment that both parties will accept, or at least fear to challenge. His authority is based not on divine right, but on respect, earned through his wealth, his courage in battle, and his ability to provide for his people. A weak Jarl will quickly lose control, and the Longhouse will descend into chaos. Theft is one of the most serious crimes. In a community where resources are scarce, and every tool, every animal, every piece of food is essential for survival, Stealing is not just a crime against an individual, it's a crime against the entire group. The punishment is swift and severe. A thief might be fined, outlawed, or even executed. An outlaw is a person who has been cast out of the community, stripped of all rights and protections. Anyone can kill an outlaw without fear of reprisal. It is a fate worse than death. Murder is an even more complex issue. It is seen not as a crime against the state, but as a personal offense against the victim's family. The family has the right to seek revenge, either through a blood feud or by demanding a weregild, a payment in compensation for the loss of a life. The amount of the weregild depends on the social status of the victim. The life of a jarl is worth far more than the life of a common farmer. These negotiations are tense and delicate, often mediated by the jarl. A failure to reach an agreement can lead to a cycle of violence that can tear a community apart. In the Viking winter, justice is a raw, brutal, and intensely personal affair. It is a system designed not to reform, but to maintain order, to preserve the fragile balance of a society living on the edge of survival. It's a world where a man's honor is his most valuable possession, and where a single act of violence can have devastating consequences. The days blur into a monotonous cycle of darkness and cold, and your hands, though calloused and strong, are never idle. The Viking winter is a season of intense craftsmanship. This is the time when the tools of survival are not just used, but created. With the fields frozen and the seas impassable, the longhouse transforms into a bustling workshop, each person contributing their skills to the communal good. You are a master of materials. You know the properties of every type of wood. Ash is for spear shafts and axe handles, strong and flexible. Oak is for the keels of longships, tough and durable. Yew is for bows, a wood so prized it is almost sacred. You spend countless hours by the fire, carving, shaping, and polishing. Your tools are simple: an axe, an adze, a knife, a draw knife. With these, you can create anything from a simple wooden spoon to an intricately carved chest. The men are the primary woodworkers and metal workers. The blacksmith is a vital member of the community, a master of fire and iron. His forge is a place of magic and power, where he transforms raw ore into the tools and weapons that are the backbone of Viking society. The hiss of hot metal in the quenching tub, the rhythmic clang of the hammer on the anvil. These are the sounds of creation. He forges axe heads, spear points, nails, and knives, each one a testament to his skill and strength. The women are the masters of fiber. They are the weavers, the spinners, the tailors. The process of making cloth is a long and arduous one. Raw wool must be cleaned, carded to align the fibers, and then spun into yarn using a simple drop spindle, a task that requires endless patience and a delicate touch. The yarn is then dyed using natural pigments from plants and minerals, creating a vibrant palette of reds, blues, and yellows. Finally, the yarn is woven into cloth on a large, upright loom, a process that can take weeks to complete a single tunic. This is not just a chore, it's an art form. The intricate patterns and designs woven into the cloth are a source of pride and a reflection of the weaver's skill. Everyone is a craftsman. You learn to repair your own shoes, to mend your own clothes, to sharpen your own knife. Self-sufficiency is not a lifestyle choice. It's a necessity. The things you create in the darkness of winter are the things that will allow you to conquer the world in the summer. They are a tangible expression of your resilience, your ingenuity, and your unwavering will to survive. In the brutal calculus of a Viking winter, there are no snow days. Childhood is not a time of carefree play and idleness. It is a short, sharp apprenticeship for a life of hardship. The children of the Longhouse are not sheltered from the grim realities of their world. They are an integral part of it. From a young age, they are expected to contribute to the survival of the community. A boy of 7 or 8 is not playing with toys. He's learning to use a knife, to carve wood, to mend a fishing net. He follows his father to the barn, learning how to feed the livestock and clean their stalls. He listens to the stories of the Skalds, memorizing the sagas of his ancestors, learning the values of courage, honor, and loyalty. He is being trained to be a warrior, a farmer, a craftsman. His games are often miniature versions of adult tasks, mock fights with wooden swords, or contests of strength and skill. A girl of the same age is learning the complex arts of the household from her mother. She learns to spin wool, to weave cloth, to grind grain, to cook the meager meals. She learns the properties of herbs and how to use them to treat sickness. She is being trained to be the mistress of a household, the keeper of the keys, the one who will one day be responsible for the well-being of her own family. The mortality rate for children is tragically high. Disease, accidents, and the sheer harshness of the environment take a heavy toll. A child who survives to adulthood is a testament to their own resilience and the care of their community. But there is no room for sentimentality. Grief is a private affair. The community must move on. Yet, it is not a world without affection. A father might carve a small wooden horse for his son, or a mother might weave a colourful ribbon into her daughter's hair. There are moments of laughter and play, of songs and games. But these are fleeting moments in a life that is defined by duty and responsibility. The children of the Viking Age are not seen as fragile, innocent creatures to be protected. They are seen as the future of the clan, the next generation of warriors and mothers who will carry on the traditions and ensure the survival of their people. They are forged in the same fire as their parents, and they learn from a very young age that life is a hard, unforgiving, but ultimately precious thing. The sun is a ghost, a pale, distant memory. The world is a realm of shadows, of near-constant darkness, broken only by the flickering light of the fire and the cold, distant stars. In this world, without clocks, without calendars, how do you keep track of time? How do you know when to plant, when to harvest, when to set sail? The Vikings were master navigators of both the seas and the seasons, and their understanding of time was a complex, cyclical tapestry woven from the movements of the heavens and the rhythms of the earth. The sky was their clock. The position of the sun on the horizon when it deigned to appear marked the solstices and equinoxes, the 4 great turning points of the year. The winter solstice, or Yule, was a time of great importance, the longest night of the year, after which the days would slowly, imperceptibly, begin to lengthen. It was a promise of the sun's return, a beacon of hope in the depths of winter. The moon was their calendar. They divided the year into 2 seasons, summer from the middle of April to the middle of October, and winter for the rest of the year. The months were lunar, and the weeks were divided into 7 days, each named after a god: Tyr's Day, Odin's Day, Thor's Day, Frigg's Day. But this celestial timekeeping was not just a practical matter. It was deeply intertwined with their mythology. The sun and moon were not just objects in the sky. They were deities, Sol and Mani, who were constantly pursued by the great wolves Shkull and Hati. The daily cycle of day and night, the monthly cycle of the moon, the yearly cycle of the seasons, all were part of a great cosmic drama. The psychological effect of the winter's darkness was profound. The loss of the sun was a time of fear and uncertainty. It was a time when the boundaries between the world of the living and the world of the dead were thought to be thin, when ghosts and spirits roamed the earth. The modern affliction of seasonal affective disorder was likely a harsh reality of Viking life. To combat this, they relied on a different kind of timekeeping, the rhythm of their own lives. The day was divided not by hours, but by meals and tasks. There was the morning meal, the midday meal, and the evening meal. There was the time for milking, the time for mending, the time for storytelling. This human rhythm, this steady, predictable cycle of work and rest, provided a sense of order and purpose in a world that had been plunged into chaos. It was a way of holding on to sanity, of measuring out their lives in the long, dark wait for the sun's return. In the long, dark, and often tedious hours of a Viking winter, with the wind howling outside and the smoke stinging your eyes inside, there is one solace, one comfort, one source of warmth and cheer that can make the grim reality of your existence just a little more bearable: alcohol. But this isn't the refined, sophisticated wine of the Romans or the light, crisp lager of the modern world. This is Viking booze, and it's as rugged and unforgiving as the people who drink it. The two mainstays of the Viking diet are ale and mead. Ale is the everyday drink, the liquid bread that accompanies every meal. It's brewed from barley, and it's thick, cloudy, and nutritious. The alcohol content is relatively low, and it's consumed by everyone, including children, as a safe, hydrating alternative to potentially contaminated water. Brewing ale is one of the most important tasks of the household, a skill passed down through generations. To run out of ale in the middle of winter is a disaster, a sign of poor planning, and a source of great shame. Mead is the drink of poets, kings, and gods. It's a sweet, potent wine, made from fermented honey, and it's reserved for special occasions: feasts, weddings, religious rituals. To drink mead is to partake in a tradition that is steeped in mythology. According to the sagas, the mead of poetry, a magical brew that grants the drinker the gift of skaldship, was created from the blood of a wise being named Kvasir. To share a horn of mead with your chieftain is a sign of great honor, a symbol of your loyalty and his generosity. Drinking is a communal activity. It's done in the great hall, around the fire, from shared drinking horns that are passed from person to person. It's a social lubricant that loosens tongues, fuels storytelling, and strengthens the bonds of community. But it's also a source of danger. The Vikings were not known for their moderation. A night of heavy drinking could easily lead to a holmgang, a formal duel to settle a dispute, or a drunken brawl that could end in serious injury or death. The sagas are full of stories of heroes who perform great deeds while drunk, and also of heroes who meet a tragic end because of a drunken boast or a misplaced insult. The alcohol is also a precious resource. The honey and grain used to make it are the same honey and grain that are needed to feed the family. To waste it is a crime. So, You drink with a sense of reverence, of gratitude, of awareness that this golden liquid is a gift, a brief, warm respite from the cold, hard reality of your life. You raise your horn, you shout, "Skoll!" Swing, and for a little while, the world feels a little less bleak. While the men of the longhouse are out hunting, chopping wood, or sharpening their weapons, the true master of the winter domain is the woman of the house. In a society often defined by the exploits of its male warriors, the Viking woman, or hus, wields a quiet, formidable power that is the bedrock of her community's survival. She is the keeper of the keys. This is not just a symbolic title, it is a literal one. She wears a set of iron or bronze keys on her belt, a symbol of her authority over the household. She is in charge of the larder, the food stores that are the difference between life and death. She rations the salted fish, the smoked meat, the grain, with a careful, calculating eye. She knows exactly how much is left, and she knows that a single miscalculation could mean starvation for her family. She is the healer. She is the one who tends to the sick and injured, using her knowledge of herbs and folk remedies passed down through generations. She knows which plants can soothe a fever, which can stop bleeding, which can ease the pain of childbirth. She is a doctor, a nurse, and a pharmacist, all rolled into one. She is the weaver. She is the one who transforms raw, greasy wool into the warm clothing that protects her family from the brutal cold. It's a long, laborious process that requires immense skill and patience. She's a creator, a maker, a provider of one of the most essential necessities of life. She's the manager of the household. She oversees the work of the children and the slaves, ensuring that the endless cycle of chores, the cooking, the cleaning, the mending, is done efficiently. She is the heart of the longhouse, the one who maintains order and harmony in the cramped, stressful conditions of the winter confinement. While the law, in the form of a thing, was the domain of men, women were not without legal rights. They could own property, inherit land, and divorce their husbands. A woman who was mistreated, or whose husband failed to provide for the family, could leave him and take her dowry with her. This gave them a degree of autonomy and power that was rare in many other ancient societies. The Viking woman is not a damsel in distress. She is a warrior in her own right. Her battlefield is the longhouse. Her weapons are her keys, her loom, her knowledge, and her resilience. She is the anchor of her family, the silent, unheralded hero of the Viking winter. Without her, the great warriors and sea kings would be nothing but frozen corpses in a desolate wasteland. In the deepest, darkest heart of the Viking winter, when the world is held in the grip of ice and the veil between the worlds is thin, you might seek answers not from the gods of Asgard, but from a more mysterious, more intimidating figure. The Völva. The Völva, or seeress, is a powerful and respected figure in Norse society, a woman who practices a form of magic known as Sida. She is a shaman, a prophetess, a witch, who can communicate with the dead, see the future, and influence the fate of men. She is not a priestess of any particular god. She is a practitioner of an ancient, pre-Christian tradition, a keeper of the old ways. She is a wanderer, a woman who travels from village to village, offering her services in exchange for food, shelter, and respect. When she arrives at your longhouse, she is treated with the utmost reverence. The chieftain gives her the high seat, the place of honor by the fire. She is given the best food and drink, Everyone knows that to offend a vulva is to invite disaster. The vulva is an imposing figure. She is often an old woman, her face a roadmap of wrinkles, her eyes holding a deep, unsettling wisdom. She carries a staff, or sidestaffer, a symbol of her power, often carved with runes and adorned with charms. Her clothing is distinctive, a blue or black cloak, a headdress of animal skin, gloves of cat skin, and a belt from which hang a pouch of magical herbs and talismans. The ceremony of cider is a powerful and dramatic ritual. The vulva sits on a high platform, or saidjala, while a group of women, the vodlakor, sing a special chant to help her enter a trance. As the song swells, the vulva's consciousness travels to the other worlds, to the realms of the gods, the giants, and the dead. In this state, she can answer questions about the future. Will the harvest be good? Will the raid be successful? Will a sick child recover? Her prophecies are often cryptic, delivered in a strange, otherworldly voice, and they are taken with the utmost seriousness. Her magic is not just about seeing the future, it's also about shaping it. She can cast spells for good luck, for protection, for a successful hunt. She can also cast curses, a power that makes her both respected and feared. The vulva is a woman who walks between the worlds, a figure of immense power and mystery. She is a reminder that in the Viking world, the most profound wisdom and the most terrifying power often reside not in the hands of kings and warriors, but in the heart of a lone, wandering woman. The fire in the longhouse casts a warm, protective glow, but beyond the circle of light, the darkness holds more than just the cold and the wolves. The Viking imagination is populated by a host of supernatural creatures, and in the long, claustrophobic nights of winter, the fear of them is palpable. The most terrifying of these is the Draugr. The Draugr is not a ghost, it is a corporeal, walking dead. The reanimated corpse of a person who was either particularly evil in life or was not buried with the proper rituals. They are creatures of immense strength, with skin the colour of death, and they smell of the grave. They are said to guard the treasure buried in their grave mounds, and they are fiercely territorial. A Draugr can leave its mound at night to terrorise the living, driving people mad, killing livestock, and even wrestling travellers to death. The sagas are full of chilling tales of heroes who must battle these undead monstrosities. The only way to kill a Draugr is to decapitate it, burn the body, and scatter the ashes in the sea. This fear of the walking dead is why burial rituals are so important. A person must be buried with their weapons, their tools, and the proper offerings to ensure that they rest peacefully and do not return to haunt the living. But the Draugr is not the only threat lurking in the darkness. The forests are home to trolls and giants, or Jötnar, ancient, malevolent beings who are the sworn enemies of the gods and of mankind. They are forces of chaos and destruction, and to encounter one is to face certain death. The mountains are the domain of the dwarves, master craftsmen who live deep within the earth, forging magical weapons and treasures. They are not the friendly, comical figures of modern fantasy. They are secretive, greedy, and often treacherous creatures who can be dangerous to cross. Even the beautiful, serene landscapes of Scandinavia are not what they seem. The rivers and lakes are home to the Nyx, or water spirits, who can lure unwary travellers to a watery grave. The forests are inhabited by the Horde, seductive, beautiful female spirits with cows' tails, who can enchant and kidnap men. In the Viking winter, the world is a magical, terrifying place. The boundary between the natural and the supernatural is thin, and every shadow, every strange sound, every gust of wind could be a sign of something otherworldly. You huddle closer to the fire, you whisper the old stories, and you pray that the creatures of the night will leave you in peace. The darkness has reached its peak. The sun is a forgotten dream. The world is a monochrome landscape of white snow and black sky. Just when it seems that the cold and the gloom will last forever, a flicker of light appears on the horizon. Not the sun, but the promise of it. It is time for Yule. Yule is the most important festival of the Viking year, a midwinter celebration that marks the winter solstice. It's a time of feasting, drinking, and ritual, a defiant roar of life in the face of the encroaching darkness. The preparations for Yule begin weeks in advance. The longhouse is cleaned and decorated with evergreen boughs, a symbol of life's endurance. A special Yule log is chosen, a massive piece of oak that will be burned in the hearth for the duration of the festival. It is a sacred fire, a symbol of the sun's warmth and a source of protection against the evil spirits that are thought to be most powerful during this time. The centerpiece of the Yule celebration is the feast. This is a time of rare abundance, a welcome respite from the meager rations of the long winter. A boar is often sacrificed, an animal sacred to the god Freya, a deity of fertility and prosperity. The boar is then roasted and served as the main course of a magnificent feast that includes the best of the larder's stores: smoked meats, rich cheeses, sweet honey cakes, and endless horns of ale and mead. It is a time for generosity, for the chieftain to share his wealth with his people, reinforcing the bonds of loyalty and community. But Yule is not just a party, it's a deeply religious festival. The sacrifices are not just for show, they are offerings to the gods, a way to thank them for their protection and to ask for their blessing in the coming year. It is a time for oath swearing, for making solemn vows for the year ahead. A warrior might swear to conquer a new land, or a farmer might swear to clear a new field. These oaths are made over a sacred ring or a drinking horn, and to break them is a source of great dishonor. Yule is also a time for ghosts and spirits. It is believed that the Wild Hunt, a ghostly procession of spectral hunters led by Odin, rides across the sky during the Yule nights. To witness the Wild Hunt is a powerful and terrifying omen. It is a time to stay indoors, to huddle by the fire, to tell stories, and to remember the dead. The Yule festival lasts for several days, a brief, bright, and boisterous interlude in the long, dark winter. It's a time to reconnect with your family, to honor your gods, to celebrate the simple fact that you are still alive. It's a reminder that even in the deepest darkness, there is always the promise of light's return. The Yule fires have died down. The last of the roasted boar has been eaten, and the longhouse has settled back into its familiar rhythm of smoky gloom. The solstice has passed, and in theory, the days are getting longer. But you wouldn't know it. The world is still locked in the iron grip of winter, and the hardest, most desperate part is yet to come. This is the time of the false thaw. For a day or two, the temperature might rise just above freezing. The snow on the roof of the longhouse begins to melt, dripping in a steady, maddening rhythm. A sliver of pale, watery sun might even appear, a cruel tease that offers a fleeting, treacherous hope. You might be tempted to believe that spring has arrived, that the long ordeal is over. But the elders know better. They have seen this before. This is a trap, a dangerous illusion. The melting snow turns the paths into a treacherous morass of slush and mud. The ice on the rivers and fjords, which had been a solid, reliable highway, becomes weak and unstable. To venture out onto the ice now is to risk plunging into the freezing water, a fate from which there is no escape. The melting snow can also trigger avalanches in the mountains, a thundering, unstoppable wave of snow and rock that can bury a longhouse in seconds. And then, just as you have allowed yourself to dream of green fields and open water, the cold returns, fiercer and more bitter than before. The slush freezes into a solid, jagged sheet of ice, making travel even more difficult. The wind howls with a renewed fury, and the snow falls again, burying the world in a fresh blanket of white. This false thaw is a psychological blow. It's a reminder that winter is a capricious, cruel master that will not release its grip easily. It tests your resolve, your patience, your ability to endure disappointment. It is a time when the food stores are at their lowest, when the sickness is at its worst, when the claustrophobia of the longhouse is at its most suffocating. This is the final, brutal trial of the Viking winter. It is a time when you must dig deep, when you must find a strength you did not know you possessed. You must hold on to the knowledge that this is not the end, that the true spring will come. But for now, you must endure the cold, the darkness, and the bitter taste of false hope. The false thaw has passed, leaving a fresh layer of ice and a renewed sense of despair. The food stores are no longer just low. They are a source of constant, terrifying anxiety. The barrel of salted fish is empty. The last of the smoked meat was eaten at Yule. The grain bin is a shallow landscape of dust and a few scattered kernels. This is the hunger gap, the final, desperate stretch of the Viking winter, the period just before the first signs of spring, when starvation is no longer a fear, but a reality. Your diet, which was already grim, now becomes a desperate exercise in survival. You eat things that you would have once considered inedible. The boiled bones are no longer a source of broth. You gnaw on the bones themselves, trying to extract a last, fleeting trace of nourishment. You eat the hide of the cow that died last month, scorching the hair off and boiling the tough, leathery skin for hours until it is a gelatinous, vaguely edible mass. You eat tree bark, lichen, and the roots of plants you dig up from the frozen ground. It is a diet of grit, fibre, and sheer desperation. The hunting parties go out every day, but they are weak from hunger, and the animals are scarce. A single rabbit is a feast, a squirrel a banquet. The competition with the wolves is fiercer than ever. You are both starving, and you are both hunting the same prey. Sometimes you hunt each other. The social fabric of the longhouse, already frayed by months of confinement, begins to unravel completely. The bonds of family and community are tested to their limits. A hidden stash of food, a secret hoard of dried apples, can lead to accusations, to violence, to a complete breakdown of trust. The old and the weak are the first to succumb. They die quietly, without ceremony. Their bodies are wrapped in a cloak and placed in a snowdrift to be buried when the ground thaws. It is a grim, pragmatic, and heartbreaking reality. Every death is a tragedy, but it is also one less mouth to feed. You live in a state of suspended animation, a world of gnawing hunger and fading hope. Your body is a fragile, hollowed-out shell. Your mind is a fog of exhaustion and despair. You are fueled by nothing but a primal, instinctual will to survive. This is the ultimate test of a Viking. It is not about the glory of battle or the thrill of exploration. It is about the quiet, brutal, and unglamorous business of not dying. It is about enduring the hunger gap and holding on just a little bit longer for the first true sign of spring. Just when you think you can't endure another day of darkness and hunger, something shifts. It's a subtle change, almost imperceptible at first. The quality of the light is different, a little less grey, a little more gold. The air, though still cold, has lost some of its biting edge. And then you hear it, the sound of dripping water, a steady, persistent rhythm that is the most beautiful music you have ever heard. The thaw has begun. This is not the false thaw of midwinter. This is the real thing, the slow, inexorable retreat of the ice and snow. The days are noticeably longer. The sun, your long-lost friend, climbs a little higher in the sky each day. Its weak, watery rays bringing a promise of warmth and life. The snow on the roof of the longhouse melts, and the packed earth floor turns into a muddy, sodden mess. But you don't care. It's the most beautiful mess you've ever seen. You step outside, and the world is transformed. The rivers and fjords begin to break up, the ice groaning and cracking in a dramatic, thunderous chorus. The birds are returning, their songs a joyous, defiant proclamation of winter's end. The first green shoots are appearing, tiny, fragile, and more precious than any gold. The work of the longhouse changes. The focus is no longer on mere survival, but on preparation for the new season. The men begin to repair the longships, the great beautiful vessels that are the key to their wealth and power. They replace worn planks, recork the seams with tar and animal hair, and mend the great, square sails. The sound of hammers and saws fills the air, a busy, hopeful rhythm. The women take the looms outside to work in the fresh air and sunlight. They bring out the stored seeds, carefully saved from last year's harvest, and prepare the small garden plots for planting. The children released from their long confinement run and shout and play, their laughter a sound that has been absent for too long. But this is also a dangerous time. The melting snow can cause floods, and the breaking ice is treacherous. The hunger gap is not over yet. It will be weeks before the first crops are ready to be harvested, before the fishing is plentiful, before the herds have recovered their strength. But there is a new energy in the air, a sense of purpose, of optimism, of a world being reborn. You have survived. You have endured the darkness, the cold, the hunger. You have looked into the abyss, and you have not blinked. You are a Viking, and the spring has come. It is time to sharpen your axe, to raise your sail, and to go out and conquer the world. The longship, your pride and joy, has been stuck on the shore for months, a sleeping beast under a blanket of snow. Now, with the ice breaking up on the fjords, it's time to wake it. The end of winter signals the beginning of a different, more violent kind of work, preparing for the raiding season. The entire community shifts its focus. The longhouse, once a cramped, smoky sanctuary, now becomes a staging ground for war and exploration. The men gather around the ships, their voices loud and full of a boisterous, restless energy. They work with a focused intensity, their hands moving with the easy familiarity of long practice. They check every plank, every nail, every rope. The mast is raised, The great square sail of wool or linen is unfurled and inspected for tears. The steering oar is tested. A longship is a complex, beautiful, and deadly piece of technology. And its success, and your life, depends on its seaworthiness. The blacksmith's forge glows day and night. The rhythmic clang of the hammer on the anvil is a constant, percussive heartbeat. He is sharpening swords, repairing axe heads, forging new spear points. The weapons that have lain dormant all winter are now being honed to a razor's edge. You practice your skills. You form a shield wall with your kinsmen, the overlapping shields creating an impenetrable barrier. You practice with your sword and axe, the movements fluid and deadly. You are not just a farmer or a craftsman anymore. You are a warrior, and you are preparing for the brutal, intimate business of close quarters combat. The women are also busy. They are packing supplies for the voyage, dried fish, hard bread, barrels of ale. They are weaving new sails, mending old clothes, preparing the things that the men will need on their long, dangerous journey. There's a sense of excitement, of anticipation, of a great collective release of pent-up energy. The long, dark, passive months of winter are over. It is time for action, for adventure, for the thrill of the raid. It's a strange paradox. The violence and danger of the raiding season are a welcome relief from the quiet, grinding misery of the winter. It is a chance to gain wealth, to win honor, to see the world beyond your small, isolated fjord. It is a chance to be a Viking. So, you stand on the shore, the salt spray on your face, the wind in your hair, your hand on the hilt of your sword. The longship is ready. The sea is calling, and you are ready to answer. For months, your concept of hygiene has been, to put it mildly, theoretical. You've been living in a smoky longhouse, sleeping on straw, wearing the same wool tunic for weeks on end, and your only bath has been a quick shivering splash of icy water. You smell of wood smoke, old sweat, and goat. Now, with the thaw, comes a moment of pure, unadulterated luxury, the first real wash of the season. The river, once a solid, impassable sheet of ice, is now a rushing, turbulent flow of frigid but liquid water. It's still breathtakingly cold, but it's water, and that's all that matters. You strip off your layers of greasy, matted wool and leather, and you wade into the current. The shock of the cold is intense, a jolt that seems to stop your heart. But then comes a feeling of profound, almost spiritual cleansing. You scrub your skin with sand from the riverbank, the coarse grains scraping away months of accumulated grime. You wash your long, tangled hair, the icy water a sharp, invigorating shock to your scalp. For the first time in what feels like an eternity, you are clean. The laundry is a communal affair. The women of the longhouse gather at the riverbank, their chatter and laughter a joyous sound. They beat the heavy wool tunics and cloaks against the rocks, the rhythmic thud a percussive accompaniment to their songs. They use a primitive form of soap, a mixture of animal fat and ash, to work out the stubborn stains and smells. The clothes are then laid out on the rocks to dry in the pale, watery sunlight. It's a day of renewal, of shedding the old, stale skin of winter. It's a ritual that is as much about psychological cleansing as it is about physical hygiene. You are washing away the darkness, the confinement, the memory of the long, hard months. You emerge from the river, your skin tingling, your body feeling light and alive. You put on a clean, sun-dried tunic, and for a moment, you feel like a new person. It's a simple pleasure, a basic human need. But after the long, grim winter, it feels like the greatest luxury in the world. You are clean, you are alive, and you are ready for whatever comes next. It's a fresh start, a new beginning, a baptism in the icy, life-giving waters of the spring. The winter is over. You have survived. But the long, dark months have left their mark, not just on the landscape, but on your mind. The psychological scars of the Viking winter are deep and lasting. You're a survivor, but you're also a changed person. The claustrophobia of the longhouse, the endless darkness, the constant, low-level anxiety of starvation, all have taken their toll. You might find yourself hoarding food, even now that spring has brought a new abundance. You might wake up in the middle of the night, your heart pounding, thinking you heard the howl of a wolf. You might feel a pang of irrational anger at a family member over a minor slight, a ghost of the frayed tempers of the winter confinement. The grief for those who did not survive is a heavy, constant presence. You remember the faces of the old, the sick, the children who faded away in the smoky gloom. Their absence is a hole in the fabric of your community, a silent reminder of the fragility of life. There is no therapy, no counseling, no language to express the complex emotions of trauma and loss. You are expected to be strong, to be stoic, to move on. So, you bury your grief deep inside, and you carry on. But the memories are there, in the quiet moments, in the long, still evenings. The experience has also forged in you a deep, primal connection to your community. You have survived because you worked together, because you shared your last piece of bread, because you huddled together for warmth. The bonds of kinship and loyalty have been tested in the crucible of winter, and they have emerged stronger, more resilient. You look at the faces of your family and your neighbors, and you see not just individuals, but fellow survivors, people who have shared your suffering and your triumph. You have also gained a profound, intimate knowledge of the natural world. You can read the sky, the wind, the seasons, with an instinct that is deeper than conscious thought. You have learned the hard lessons of survival, the importance of planning, of resourcefulness, of an unwavering will to endure. These are the lessons that will serve you well in the A-raiding season, in the battles and voyages that lie ahead. The Viking winter has been a brutal, unforgiving teacher. It has stripped you down to your bare essentials, forced you to confront your deepest fears, and shown you the very limits of your endurance. It has left you scarred, but it has also left you stronger, wiser, and more alive than you have ever been. You have looked into the heart of darkness, and you have not been broken. You are a survivor, and you carry the memory of the winter in your bones, a silent, enduring testament to the strength of the human spirit. You've made it through the endless night. You've outlasted the hunger, the cold, and the gnawing paranoia. But what has this survival cost your physical body? Stepping into the spring sun, you are a shadow of your former self. A Viking winter carves its story not just into your mind, but directly into your flesh and bone. Let's start with your weight. You are gaunt. The meager winter diet of thin porridge and salty fish has stripped away every ounce of non-essential fat. Your muscles, though still functional from the endless chores, are lean and depleted. Your face is hollowed, your cheekbones sharp, your eyes sunken into their sockets. You've been running a caloric deficit for months, and it shows. Your skin tells its own tale of hardship. It's dry, cracked, and weathered from the constant exposure to cold wind and smoky air. Your hands are a roadmap of calluses, cuts, and scars from mending tools and chopping wood in the freezing temperatures. You might have patches of frostbite on your ears, nose, or fingertips, areas that are now perpetually numb or prone to aching in the cold. If you were unlucky, you might be missing a toe or two, blackened and lost to the unforgiving frost. Then there's the scurvy. The lack of vitamin C in your winter diet has left its mark. Your gums might be swollen and prone to bleeding. Your joints ache with a deep, persistent pain. Old scars, long since healed, may have mysteriously reopened. Your body is a fragile, creaking machine, desperately in need of the fresh greens and fruits that the spring will bring. Your teeth, if you still have them, are likely worn down from the grit in your bread and the tough, leathery texture of your preserved food. A cracked tooth or an abscess was a common winter ailment, a source of agonizing pain that you had to endure without any form of relief. Your respiratory system has taken a beating. Months of breathing in the thick, acrid smoke of the longhouse fire has left you with a chronic cough, a Viking's lung that will likely plague you for the rest of your life. You are, in short, a wreck. You are a testament to the brutal, attritional nature of your world. But you are alive. And in the Viking Age, that is the only victory that truly matters. You look at your scarred hands, you feel the ache in your bones, and you know that you have paid the price of survival. You have earned the right to see another summer, to feel the sun on your face, to taste the sweetness of a wild berry. You are a survivor, and your body is the map of your journey. In the snow-locked world of a Viking winter, with the fjords frozen and the trade routes closed, the economy doesn't stop. It just becomes more intimate, more brutal, and far more personal. There are no coins changing hands, no bustling markets. The currency of the winter is not silver, it's trust, reputation, and the tangible goods you need to survive. This is the world of barter, of favours, of a complex web of social obligations that holds your community together. Your wealth is not measured by the gold in your chest, but by the salt in your larder, the wool in your stores, the wood in your pile. A family with a good milk cow is rich. A man who is a skilled blacksmith is a king. A woman who is a masterful weaver is a queen. Your skills are your currency. You don't buy a new axe head. You trade a portion of your smoked fish to the blacksmith in exchange for his labour. You don't pay for a new tunic. You provide the weaver with the raw wool and a share of your next hunt. It's a system based on mutual dependence, on a clear understanding of the value of each person's contribution. But this system is also fraught with tension. A bad trade, a broken promise, a perceived slight, all can lead to a bitter feud. Your reputation is everything. A man who is known to be lazy, dishonest, or a poor craftsman will find himself on the outside of this intricate web of exchange. No one will trade with him, no one will help him, and in the harsh reality of the winter, that is a death sentence. The Jarl, or chieftain, plays a crucial role in this winter economy. He is the wealthiest man in the community, and he is expected to be generous. He hosts feasts, he gives gifts, he provides for those who are struggling. But this is not charity, it's an investment. His generosity builds loyalty, it reinforces his authority, and it ensures that he will have a strong, united group of warriors to follow him in the spring. A stingy Jarl is a weak Jarl, and a weak Jarl will not be a Jarl for long. This is an economy of relationships. It's about who you know, who you trust, who owes you a favour. It's a delicate, dangerous dance of obligation and reciprocity, where a single misstep can have fatal consequences. It's a system forged in the crucible of winter, a testament to the Viking understanding that in a world of scarcity, the only true wealth is the strength of your community. The world of the Vikings is not just populated by humans and gods. It is a landscape teeming with a host of supernatural beings, a hidden world of elves, dwarves, and spirits that coexist with your own. And in the long, dark, and often frightening nights of winter, the belief in this unseen world is a powerful and ever-present force. The elves, or Alfar, are not the small, whimsical creatures of modern fantasy. They are powerful, beautiful, and often dangerous beings associated with fertility, light, and the ancestral spirits. They live in their own realm, Alfheim, but they can also inhabit the hills, forests, and burial mounds of your world. You treat them with a mixture of reverence and fear. You might leave an offering of food or milk at a sacred stone or a large tree, a blot, to gain their favour and ensure a good harvest or a healthy herd. To offend the elves is to invite their wrath, which can manifest as sickness, misfortune, or even death. The dwarves, or Dvergar, are another powerful race. They are masters of the forge, living deep within the mountains, where they craft magical weapons and treasures for the gods. They are not the comical, ale-swilling figures of folklore. They are secretive, jealous, and often malevolent creatures who are best avoided. To stumble upon a dwarf's forge is a rare and dangerous event. They might craft a magnificent sword for you, but they will always demand a high price, a price that might be more than you are willing to pay. The land itself is alive with spirits. The Landvetir, or land wights, are the guardian spirits of a particular place, a river, a mountain, a farm. They must be treated with respect. A Viking longship approaching a new land would often have its dragon-headed prow removed, so as not to frighten and offend the local Landvetir. To build a longhouse, you must first ask permission of the spirits of that land and leave an offering to ensure their goodwill. A failure to do so can result in a cursed home, a place of bad luck, and constant misfortune. This belief in a hidden, supernatural world shapes your every interaction with the landscape around you. You are never truly alone. You are a guest in a world that is older, more magical, and far more dangerous than it appears. You walk with a sense of caution, of respect, of awareness that the rustle of leaves in the wind or the ripple of water in a stream could be a sign of something otherworldly. It's a worldview that imbues the natural world with a sense of wonder, of mystery, and of profound, terrifying power. In the endless, disorienting darkness of the Viking winter, with the sun gone and the world outside a featureless expanse of snow, your inner world becomes a landscape of heightened significance. Dreams are not just random firings of a sleeping brain. They are messages, omens, a direct line of communication with the gods and the spirit world. Every night, as you drift off to sleep in the smoky confines of the longhouse, you are embarking on a journey into a realm where the future is revealed and the will of the gods is made known. The interpretation of dreams is a serious and respected art. A dream of a great wolf might be a warning of an impending attack. A dream of a bountiful harvest could be a promise of a prosperous year. A dream of a ship sailing on a calm sea might foretell a successful raid. You share your dreams with your family, with the elders, with the chieftain. They are debated, discussed, and analysed for their hidden meanings. The vulva, the seeress, is the ultimate authority on dream interpretation. She can see beyond the surface images to the deeper, symbolic truths that lie within. A dream that seems straightforward might have a complex hidden meaning that only she can unravel. Omens are everywhere, not just in your dreams, but in the world around you. The flight of a raven, the howl of a wolf, the crackle of the fire, all can be interpreted as signs from the gods. A raven flying from left to right might be a good omen, a sign of victory in battle. A wolf howling near the longhouse could be a warning of death. A sudden, unexplained gust of wind could be the breath of a god or the whisper of a ghost. This belief in dreams and omens creates a world that is saturated with meaning, where every event, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, is part of a larger, cosmic narrative. It's a worldview that can be both comforting and terrifying. It's comforting to believe that the gods are communicating with you, that you are not alone in your struggle. But it's also terrifying to believe that your fate is written in the stars, that your life is a story that has already been told. You live in a state of constant, heightened awareness, always watching, always listening for the subtle signs and symbols that will reveal your destiny. It's a world where the boundary between the inner and outer worlds is blurred, where the landscape of your mind is as real and as important as the frozen landscape outside your door. A cough echoes through the smoky darkness of the longhouse. It's a harsh, racking sound that speaks of fever and failing lungs. Old Gunnar, who has seen 70 winters, is sick. In a world of ice and scarcity, this is a death sentence. And when he dies, his passing presents a grim, practical problem. What do you do with the body? In the Viking winter, the ground is frozen solid, as hard as iron. It is impossible to dig a grave. So, the dead must wait. Gunnar's body is wrapped in a wool cloak, his favourite axe placed by his side. He is then carried out of the longhouse and placed in a small, hastily built wooden shed, or sometimes just a deep snowdrift. A temporary tomb until the spring thaw. It is a grim, heartbreaking necessity. You are living with your dead. The body of your grandfather, your neighbour, your friend, is just a few dozen feet from your door, a frozen, silent reminder of your own mortality. This practice has a profound psychological effect on the community. Death is not a distant, abstract concept. It's a tangible, physical presence. You see the snow-covered mound every day, a stark, white monument to the fragility of life. The fear of the Draugr, the walking dead, is a constant, low-level hum of anxiety. Will Gunnar rest peacefully, or will he return to haunt the living? You perform the proper rituals, you leave offerings, you whisper the old prayers, but the fear remains. The children are not sheltered from this reality. They see the bodies, they hear the whispers, they understand that death is a part of life. It is a harsh but necessary lesson in a world where survival is a daily struggle. And then, when the spring finally arrives and the ground thaws, the funerals are held. It is a time of great ceremony, of feasting, of storytelling, of honouring the dead. The bodies are retrieved from their winter tombs and buried with the proper rituals, in a grave mound or on a funeral pyre. It is a time for communal grief, for a collective release of the sorrow that has been suppressed all winter. But for now, in the deep, cold heart of winter, the dead are your silent neighbours. They are a constant reminder of the high stakes of your existence, of the thin line between the warmth of the longhouse and the cold, silent embrace of the frozen earth. After months of darkness, cold, hunger, fear, and claustrophobic confinement, after boiling bones for soup and fighting wolves for scraps, after watching the old and the sick fade into the smoky gloom, it's time to ask the final brutal question. Would you, a modern, comfortable, well-fed human, survive a single Viking winter? Let's be brutally honest. Number: absolutely not. You wouldn't last a month. You'd be done by the first week of perpetual darkness. You would complain about the lack of Wi-Fi. You would be horrified by the communal toilet. You would gag on the porridge and weep at the thought of eating boiled leather. You would lack the skills, the resilience, and the sheer, stubborn, grit your teeth and get on with it attitude that was the bedrock of Viking survival. You are a product of a world of comfort, of convenience, of instant gratification. The Vikings were a product of a world that was trying to kill them every single day. They were not tougher in some abstract moral sense. They were physically and mentally conditioned for a reality that we can barely imagine. Their bodies were accustomed to the cold. Their stomachs were accustomed to the meager diet. Their minds were accustomed to the darkness. But here's the most important part. They had each other. They survived not as individuals, but as a community, a tightly woven tapestry of kinship, loyalty, and mutual dependence. They huddled together for warmth. They shared their last piece of bread. They told stories to keep the darkness at bay. Your modern, individualistic mindset would be a liability in this world. You would be an outsider, a weak link in the chain of survival. So, as you sit in your warm, well-lit home, with a full refrigerator and a flush toilet, take a moment to appreciate the sheer, staggering, brutal miracle of the Viking winter. It was a crucible that forged a people of extraordinary resilience, a people who not only survived the harshest of conditions, but who then went on to change the course of history. You wouldn't have survived, and that's okay. Your world was built on the foundations that they laid, a world where the darkness is kept at bay not by a fire in a longhouse, but by the flick of a switch. And for that, you should be grateful. Skål.